In this episode, we build on symmetric encryption and hashing by introducing asymmetric cryptography, which solves a key challenge in secure communication: how to share secrets safely when you have never met the other party. Asymmetric cryptography uses a pair of mathematically related keys instead of a single shared secret. One key is public and can be shared openly. The other key is private and must be kept secret. This design enables secure key exchange, authentication, and digital signatures in ways that symmetric encryption alone cannot support. At the foundational level, your goal is not to understand the mathematics behind these algorithms, but to understand what problems they solve and how they support digital trust. When you grasp the roles of public and private keys, many cryptography questions become logical rather than abstract. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Let's begin with the core idea of a key pair. In asymmetric cryptography, each participant generates two keys, a public key and a private key. The public key is distributed widely and can be shared with anyone. The private key is kept secret and never shared. The keys are mathematically linked so that data encrypted with one key can be decrypted only with the other. This pairing creates flexibility that symmetric encryption does not provide. Instead of needing to share a secret key in advance, you can use someone's public key to protect data that only their private key can unlock. This eliminates the key distribution problem that symmetric systems face. One of the primary uses of asymmetric cryptography is secure key exchange. Remember that symmetric encryption is efficient and ideal for protecting large amounts of data, but it requires both parties to share the same secret key. Asymmetric cryptography solves this by allowing one party to send a symmetric session key encrypted with the recipient's public key. Only the recipient's private key can decrypt it. Once both parties share the symmetric key securely, they use symmetric encryption for the rest of the communication because it is faster. This hybrid approach combines the strengths of both methods. On the exam, when you see questions about establishing secure communication over an untrusted network, asymmetric cryptography often plays the role of safely exchanging keys. Another major function of asymmetric cryptography is authentication. Authentication is about proving identity. If someone claims to be a specific person or organization, how can you verify that claim? With asymmetric keys, a person can use their private key to perform a cryptographic operation that others can verify using their public key. Because only the private key holder could have produced that result, successful verification increases confidence in identity. This concept underlies digital signatures, which are widely used in secure communication and software distribution. Understanding this role helps you distinguish encryption for confidentiality from cryptographic proof of identity. Digital signatures are built using both hashing and asymmetric cryptography. First, a hash of the data is created. Then, that hash is encrypted using the signer's private key. The resulting signature can be verified by anyone using the signer's public key. If the verification process succeeds, it confirms two things. First, the data has not changed, because the hash would differ if it had. Second, the signature was created by someone who possesses the private key. This provides both integrity and authenticity. On the exam, if a scenario involves verifying that a message truly came from a specific sender and was not altered, digital signatures are likely the relevant concept. It is important to understand that asymmetric encryption is generally slower than symmetric encryption. Because of the complex mathematical operations involved, asymmetric methods are not usually used to encrypt large volumes of data directly. Instead, they are used for key exchange, digital signatures, and small pieces of critical information. This performance characteristic explains why hybrid systems are common. When you evaluate answer choices in exam questions, remember that asymmetric cryptography is typically chosen for solving trust and identity problems, not for bulk data encryption. Recognizing this distinction helps you avoid selecting technically correct but inefficient answers. Let's revisit the confidentiality property of the CIA triad and connect it to asymmetric cryptography. If you encrypt a message using someone's public key, only their private key can decrypt it. This protects confidentiality because even if the message is intercepted, it cannot be read without the private key. However, confidentiality alone does not prove who sent the message. That is where digital signatures come in. If the sender signs the message with their private key, the recipient can verify authenticity using the sender's public key. These roles are different, and exam questions sometimes test whether you understand which key is used for which purpose. A simple rule is this: encrypt with the recipient's public key for confidentiality, sign with the sender's private key for authenticity. Key management remains critical in asymmetric systems as well. The private key must be protected carefully because anyone who gains access to it can impersonate the key owner or decrypt confidential data. Public keys, although meant to be shared, must still be distributed in a trustworthy way. If an attacker can trick someone into using a fake public key, they can intercept and decrypt messages. This leads into the concept of trust infrastructure, which you will explore more deeply when studying certificates and public key systems. For now, understand that simply having a public key is not enough. You must trust that it truly belongs to the claimed entity. Exam scenarios involving impersonation or man-in-the-middle attacks often hinge on this idea. Another foundational concept is non-repudiation, which is the assurance that a sender cannot deny having sent a message. Digital signatures support non-repudiation because the signature is tied to the private key, and the private key is assumed to be under the sole control of its owner. If a signed document is verified successfully, it provides strong evidence that the signer approved it. In business contexts, this supports contracts, approvals, and software releases. On the exam, if you see a question about ensuring that a sender cannot later deny an action, digital signatures and asymmetric cryptography are often central to the correct answer. From a risk perspective, asymmetric cryptography reduces the likelihood of successful impersonation and eavesdropping when implemented properly. It supports secure communication over untrusted networks, which is essential for modern digital business. Without asymmetric methods, secure web transactions, email encryption, and many authentication systems would be far less practical. This directly supports digital trust because users rely on the authenticity and confidentiality of online interactions. When evaluating security architecture in exam scenarios, asymmetric cryptography is often the foundation of secure session establishment and identity verification. A common beginner mistake is mixing up which key performs which function. Remember that anything encrypted with a public key can be decrypted only with the corresponding private key. Conversely, anything encrypted with a private key can be verified using the corresponding public key. In practice, digital signatures use this property in combination with hashing. Keeping this pattern clear in your mind will prevent confusion during multiple-choice elimination. If an answer suggests decrypting with a public key for confidentiality, that is a warning sign. If it suggests signing with a public key, that is also incorrect. The roles are specific and not interchangeable. Another misconception is thinking that asymmetric cryptography alone guarantees full security. Like all controls, it must be part of a layered approach. If private keys are poorly protected, stored insecurely, or shared improperly, the entire system can fail. If public keys are not validated properly, attackers can insert themselves into communication channels. Therefore, governance, procedures, and monitoring still matter. This ties back to earlier lessons about policies, standards, and key management practices. Cryptography is powerful, but it depends on correct implementation and oversight. As you prepare for exam questions in this area, practice summarizing asymmetric cryptography in one clear explanation. It uses a public and private key pair to enable secure key exchange, authentication, and digital signatures. Encryption with a public key protects confidentiality for the intended recipient. Signing with a private key supports integrity and authenticity. These roles are distinct but complementary. When you can state this confidently, you have internalized the core logic that many cryptography questions rely on. To conclude, asymmetric cryptography introduces key pairs that solve the problem of secure communication and identity verification over untrusted networks. Public keys are shared openly, while private keys remain secret. Together, they enable secure key exchange, digital signatures, authenticity, and non-repudiation. Although slower than symmetric encryption, asymmetric methods are essential for establishing trust and protecting identity. Their effectiveness depends on strong key management and trustworthy distribution of public keys. If you carry one decision rule from this episode, let it be this. When a scenario involves proving identity or safely exchanging keys across an untrusted network, think asymmetric cryptography and key pairs rather than symmetric encryption alone.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.